If you ask any child which place in the world they want to visit, 8 out of 10 will answer with Disney parks. And honestly, I believe this statistic holds true for adults as well. Being so prevalent in the popular imagination is only possible due to Disney's ability to create memorable and enchanting experiences for all kinds of audiences. The company offers a unique combination of elements that capture anyone's imagination. The idea of unlimited fun has made Disney theme parks a dream for many. Now, imagine how a child's heart would feel when they discover that the possibility of fulfilling their long-awaited dream will no longer come true. It was with the intention of avoiding such a disappointment for her daughter that a woman was willing to go to extreme measures to give her this very special gift. In today's case, we will talk about the Argentine Sonia Rebeca Soloaga, who did something unforgivable to take her daughter to Disney. What was supposed to be a dream turned into a nightmare when, in the late afternoon of July 11, 2019, an elderly couple was found dead in their home after neither of them answered the phone calls from their children, which was quite unusual. Alberto Antonio Chirico, 71 years old, and Maria Delia Esperanza, 63, were a retired couple who had worked all their lives to buy their house and educate their children, who were now adults and no longer lived with them. They lived in Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina. A few blocks from their house, one of their daughters, Maria Florencia Chirico, lived, and she suspected something was wrong due to the lack of contact from her parents. So, she decided to go to their house to check on them. As she approached, she noticed that the gate to the residence was open, with no signs of forced entry. Finding this strange, she entered the house and, as soon as she opened the door, she found her father, Alberto, lifeless on the floor in the dining room with a pillow on his head. Next to him was her mother, Maria Delia. The police were called, and upon arriving at the scene, they determined that both had been severely beaten on the head and then shot in the back of the neck. It was also determined that the assailant had used a pillow to muffle the sound of the gunshots. The elderly couple's house was also ransacked, confirming that it was a robbery murder. The motive for this heinous crime? Approximately $70,000 to $80,000 in cash that the elderly couple had in their home. According to their daughter, the money was the only thing taken from the crime scene. The Argentine police started investigating who might be responsible for the murder of the elderly couple. In the months leading up to the crime, other residents of the neighborhood had been complaining about increased crime in the area, so the police naturally assumed the criminals were likely young drug addicts who had invaded the house in search of something to steal. However, security cameras in the area showed no suspicious activity on the street where the elderly couple lived. The children and other acquaintances of the couple, people who probably knew about the amount of money Alberto and Maria Delia had at home, were also investigated but were soon ruled out as suspects because they all had verified alibis for the time of the crime, which was estimated to have occurred between noon and 3 p.m. that day. The police delved deeper into the investigation, and this is when the name Sonia Rebeca Soloaga, 37 years old, came up. Sonia worked for the municipal police of Buenos Aires and was one of the officers who patrolled the neighborhood, particularly the street and blocks near the victim's residence. On that day, hours earlier, Sonia had filed a police report stating that she had been robbed on the street and had her money and gun stolen. Coincidentally, the stolen gun had the same caliber as the one used to kill the elderly couple. It was discovered that Sonia had developed a certain level of friendship and trust with the Kiriko couple. She was often seen conversing with the elderly couple, and it was not uncommon for her to enter their house to use the restroom or have a drink. The elderly couple was known for not having many friends in the neighborhood, but it seemed that Sonia was someone they trusted since she was a police officer. Upon reviewing security cameras again, authorities saw Sonia appear in a neighborhood recording precisely when the crime was believed to have occurred. Based on this, the prosecution requested Sonia's pretrial detention. The prosecution claimed that Sonia needed money to pay off a debt to a travel agency from which she had purchased a trip to Disney as a 15th birthday present for her daughter. On June 7, 2021, the Argentine justice system sentenced former police officer Sonia to life in prison with the possibility of parole for the murder of Antonio and Maria Delia. She was found guilty of double homicide, as well as the crimes of robbery and false reporting of a crime. She can only request parole in 2054. Her defense attorneys claimed that Sonia was innocent but considered her guilty only of false reporting of a crime. They argued that Sonia did it out of fear of being dismissed from the police since she claimed to have left her gun and bag at a service station the previous night, and when she returned to retrieve them, the objects had disappeared. At that time, Sonia's boyfriend and also a police officer, Diego Alberto Pachilla, 37 years old, was implicated as an accomplice to the crime. Still, as no evidence of his involvement was found, he was considered innocent. However, he faces charges of helping Sonia dispose of the murder weapon. To this day, Sonia maintains her innocence. In an interview with an Argentine newspaper, she said, "It wasn't investigated as it should have been. They attacked me, and that's it. There was no evidence against me. No fingerprints, no cameras. I had no debt. If I could have paid what I needed, my daughter would have traveled in July 2019. And if not, I would continue to pay, and my daughter would have traveled later, in December or February of the following year. I will take responsibility for making a mistake in reporting the robbery, but unfortunately, I will never take responsibility for what happened to these people because I had nothing to do with it. If I hadn't lied, I wouldn't be in prison." However, the prosecutor, Oscar Ceruzzi, who handled the case at the time, believes that justice was served. It was fully confirmed, and the defense cannot refute it, that Sonia took great care to remain out of any satellite tracking at the very moment when, coincidentally, Alberto Kiriko and Maria Delia Speranza were murdered, and simultaneously, she was captured by different security cameras showing her heading to the victim's house. The accused was not considered guilty based on her inconsistent explanations of what she did or did not do that day, but because there was a solid and harmonious accumulation of unquestionable evidence that found her criminally responsible for the crime, such as her knowledge of the victim's economic capacity, the absence of signs of violence in the home invasion, and the need to ensure her impunity, ensuring that the only witnesses who could easily identify her would be unable to do so. Prosecutor concluded. Despite not admitting guilt for her crime, Sonia remains in prison and will continue to do so for at least another 30 years, until she can make her first parole request in 2054. Unfortunately, her daughter cannot fulfill her dream of going to Disney. Instead, she had to deal with a much greater disappointment than a canceled trip, the frustration and trauma of knowing that her own mother was capable of doing something terrible to innocent people who trusted her. Leave your opinion on this case in the comments, Subscribe to the channel to discover more stories like this, and don't forget to leave a like. See you in the next video.